Alright folks, gather round for a tale that'll make you double-check your pantry and maybe install a security camera in your fridge. It was a classic case of the hangry homeowner. Alone after a long day, my stomach was growling a symphony of discontent. Chips were the answer, the perfect salty, crunchy solution to my woes. I rummaged through the pantry, picturing that glorious bag of potato perfection in my mind's eye. But when I reached for it, my hand grasped only empty air. Confused, I peered deeper into the cabinet. Nada. Not a single chip in sight. My brow furrowed. Now, I'm not the tittiest person, but I definitely remembered buying that bag just the day before. Maybe I'd gotten a late-night snack attack and forgotten. Nah, impossible. I wouldn't forget the delightful crunch of salty satisfaction. A nagging unease started to bubble in my gut, mirroring the emptiness in my stomach. Feeling a strange compulsion, I started checking other shelves. Half a bag of cookies, mysteriously depleted. A leftover slice of pizza, vanished without a trace. It was like a food bank robbery had taken place, and the culprit cleaned the scene spotless. Panic started to rise in my throat. Was I losing my mind? Sleep deprivation causing me to hallucinate missing snacks? Or was something more sinister at play? Every creak of the floorboard sounded amplified, every groan of the old house seemed to whisper accusations. Desperate for a rational explanation, I grabbed my phone and started scanning the internet for sleepwalking symptoms or the latest fad diet that involved disappearing snacks. Nothing. The silence in the house grew oppressive, broken only by the insistent rumble of my empty stomach. With a newfound determination, I decided to play detective. I laid out a plate with a single, precious cookie on it, placed a strategically positioned camera facing it, and armed myself with a broom, for protection, just in case. Curled up on the couch, I kept my eyes on the camera feed, half expecting a mouse to waltz in and steal the cookie. But the minutes ticked by, the camera unwavering. Just as I started to relax, a flicker out of the corner of the screen caught my eye. There, in the frame, the cookie vanished. Vanished. No rustling, no movement, just, gone. I bolted off the couch, heart hammering against my ribs. The cookie was nowhere to be found, no crumbs, no trace. The camera footage, rewound and replayed, showed nothing. It was like a digital ghost had snagged my snack. Sleep was out of the question that night. I barricaded myself in my room, the chilling truth sinking in, I wasn't alone. My house had a tenant, one with an insatiable appetite for my snacks. It could be a mischievous raccoon, a sneaky ghost with a hankering for carbs, who knows. One thing's for sure, the next time I crave a late-night snack, I'll be stocking up on more durable defenses than just a plate and a phone camera. Maybe a mini fridge with a vault-like security system. Because let me tell you, folks, there's nothing quite like the horror of a disappearing food supply to turn your home into a house of hunger and fear. Stay safe out there, and keep your snacks under lock and key. It was a typical Friday night, solo act, takeout, cheesy horror movie marathon, and the blissful silence of an empty house. Blissful, that is, until the flickering started. Now, my TV's always been a bit of a drama queen, prone to throwing tantrums on windy nights. But this was different. The picture stuttered, colors bleeding into each other, a strobe effect that had my eyes watering. Then, something even weirder happened. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a movement. Not on the TV screen, but on the wall behind it. A subtle shift in the floral wallpaper pattern, a ripple like a breeze had disturbed it. I blinked, thinking it was just the flickering getting to me. But the shift remained, a darker shade forming a distorted face, staring back at me with hollow eyes. Panic, cold and clammy, started to creep down my spine. I reached for the remote, desperate to drown out whatever was happening with the movie's sound. But the image persisted, morphing, changing shape like a living Rorschach test. Faces contorted in silent screams, followed by cryptic symbols that swam in and out of focus. My breath hitched. This wasn't a malfunction. The symbols, vaguely familiar, resembled ancient runes I'd seen in a book about forgotten languages. It was like the wallpaper was trying to communicate, whispering secrets in a dead tongue. The flickering intensified, the TV screen erupting in static. Then, a guttural voice, distorted and inhuman, boomed from the speakers. It wasn't a language, but a primal growl that vibrated through my bones, sending shivers down my spine. I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering against my ribs. The room felt different, colder, the air thick with an unseen presence. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan from the old house, sounded amplified, imbued with a malicious intent. My eyes darted around the room, searching for the source of the voice, of the shifting patterns. Suddenly, a phrase materialized on the wall, clear as day, "Let us in." Terror choked the scream in my throat. It was an invitation, a chilling plea coming from the very fabric of the house. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my phone, the screen light a beacon of normalcy in the encroaching darkness. The flickering stopped, the TV mercifully silent. The wallpaper, however, remained marred with those distorted faces, a permanent reminder of what I'd witnessed. I called a friend, babbling about the whole ordeal, my voice laced with hysteria. They, of course, thought it was the movie marathon messing with my head. But I knew better. There was something wrong with the house, something ancient and malevolent. I spent the rest of the night huddled on the couch, bathed in the harsh white light of my phone, the flickering shadows on the wall dancing like malevolent phantoms. The next morning, a wallpaper specialist came in. He looked at the wall, scratched his head, and muttered about a rare printing defect. But his gaze lingered a little too long on those cryptic symbols, and a flicker of unease crossed his face. I haven't lived in that house since. The wallpaper was stripped down, replaced with something bland and unassuming. But sometimes, late at night, I swear I see those distorted faces flicker in the corner of my eye, a chilling reminder of the night my walls tried to talk, the night the wallpaper whispered secrets better left unheard. I live in this old Victorian monstrosity, creaky floorboards, drafty hallways, the whole Gothic charm package. And let me tell you, the charm starts to wear thin when you realize there's a whole room you're not allowed in. Yeah, a locked room. It's been there since I moved in, a single, dusty door at the end of the hallway, adorned with a rusty lock that whispered of secrets best left undisturbed. My landlord was vague about it, muttering something about family heirlooms and best left untouched. Naturally, that only fueled my curiosity. For years, the locked room remained a silent enigma. But then, one night, everything changed. I was curled up on the couch, a cheesy horror movie flickering on the screen, when I heard it. A faint scratching sound, coming from the direction of the forbidden door. At first, I dismissed it as the house settling, a groan of the old timbers. But the scratching persisted, growing frantic, desperate. Goosebumps prickled across my skin. The cheesy movie suddenly felt inadequate. My heart hammered against my ribs, a battle between morbid curiosity and pure, primal fear raging within me. Finally, with a shaky breath, I grabbed the dusty key that hung forgotten on a nail by the door. My hand trembled as I unlocked the latch. The rusty hinges groaned in protest as I pushed the door open, revealing a room shrouded in darkness. A single shaft of moonlight sliced through a dusty window, illuminating a chaotic mess. Cobwebs draped furniture like ghostly shrouds, and sheets covered objects I couldn't quite make out. The scratching stopped. An unnerving silence hung heavy in the air. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside, the floorboards groaning under my weight. The air was thick with a musty smell, a blend of dust and something else. Something I couldn't identify, but that sent a shiver down my spine. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, the chaotic scene began to reveal itself. Books lay scattered on the floor, their pages yellowed with age. An overturned easel held a canvas with a half-finished portrait, a woman's face, her eyes filled with a haunting sadness. But it wasn't the portrait that sent a jolt of terror through me. It was the cage. A large, iron cage stood in the corner, its door hanging open, a single chain dangling from the latch. And inside the cage, a pile of dusty rags, or were they? Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the broken window, sending shivers down my spine. As the moonlight flickered for a brief moment, I swear I saw movement in the pile of rags. A skeletal hand, white and bony, reaching out. I bolted out of the room, slamming the door shut behind me, the rusty lock snapping into place. I collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. What had I unlocked? A forgotten prisoner? A restless spirit? The next day, a locksmith changed the lock, replacing it with a far sturdier one. The room remains closed, its secrets buried once more. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear the echo of scratching, a chilling reminder of the night I unlocked the forbidden door and glimpsed the horror that lurked within. It all happened in my old family home, a sprawling Victorian monstrosity that seemed to hold its breath whenever you were alone. Now, this house was a symphony of creaks and groans. The floorboards complained under every step, the pipes gurgled like a disgruntled stomach, and the wind howling outside always sounded like a mournful wail. But you get used to it, right? Background noise becomes white noise. Except, this particular night, it wasn't background noise anymore. It was like the house itself was trying to talk to me. I was sprawled on the couch, engrossed in a book, trying to drown out the usual symphony, when a new sound reached my ears. A whisper. At first, I thought it was just another creak, the settling of the old house. But it came again, this time clearer. It wasn't a word, just a soft, sibilant sigh, like the wind rustling through leaves. I paused, listening intently. The silence that followed was heavy, oppressive. Then, another whisper, this time closer, right by the wall. My heart hammered against my ribs. Was it just my imagination? The old house playing tricks on me? I tried to focus on my book again, but the silence now felt deafening. Every creak, every groan, sent shivers down my spine. Then, another whisper, this time distinct, a single word, help. I froze. My head snapped towards the wall, searching for the source. Goosebumps prickled my skin. The word echoed in my mind, a desperate plea born from the very timbers of the house. Reason tried to fight back. Maybe a loose floorboard, a settling pipe creating the illusion of a voice. But the fear was stronger, an icy grip tightening around my throat. As the night wore on, the whispers grew more frequent, more insistent. Fragments of words, pleas for something I couldn't understand. Sometimes they were close, right by my ear, other times echoing from distant rooms. The house started feeling colder, the shadows deeper. My phone, usually a beacon of comfort, felt useless against whatever was happening. I was trapped in a symphony of whispers, a chilling chorus begging for something I couldn't offer. Morning arrived, a shaft of golden light cutting through the darkness and dispelling the fear momentarily. Exhausted and shaken, I called a local historian, someone who knew the house's history. He spoke of a young girl who tragically died in a fire years ago, rumored to haunt the place. The story didn't bring comfort, it amplified the fear. Was it her voice I heard? Was she trapped, lost, forever pleading for help? I couldn't stay. The whispers, now a constant reminder of the tragedy, were too much to bear. I left the house, the weight of its untold story heavy on my shoulders. The new owners swear they hear nothing but the usual creaks and groans. Maybe the whispers stopped when I left, maybe they finally found peace. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear them in my dreams, a chilling chorus echoing from the walls, a desperate plea for help from a house that remembers. Let me tell you about the night the silence got a voice, folks. It was a Tuesday, the kind of night that stretches on forever when you're home alone. Rain lashed against the windows, relentless drumming that matched the steady thump of boredom in my chest. Then, the phone rang. A jarring intrusion in the symphony of rain and solitude. No caller ID, just a string of blank spaces where a number should be. Curiosity, tinged with a healthy dose of apprehension, spurred me to answer. Static. Just a wall of white noise that crackled in my ear. I held the phone for a moment, expecting a voice, an explanation. But there was nothing, just that unsettling hiss. Then, with a click, the line went dead. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The silence returned, thicker and heavier somehow. But just as I started to relax, the phone shrilled again. This time, the silence on the other end was punctuated by a sound that sent chills down my spine, a high-pitched, chilling giggle. Like a child playing a cruel prank. But there were no children in this house, just me and the storm raging outside. My finger hovered over the end button, but morbid curiosity kept it glued to the receiver. The laughter grew louder, more hysterical, and then abruptly cut off. Before I could breathe a sigh of relief, the phone rang again. This time, the background noise was different. A choked sob, raw and desperate, filled my ear. It was the kind of sound that rips at your heartstrings, leaving you feeling helpless and exposed. The sob morphed into a wail, a primal cry of anguish that sent a wave of nausea washing over me. Every instinct screamed at me to hang up, but I couldn't tear myself away. The phone felt hot against my ear, as if the raw emotion on the other end was burning through the line. Finally, the wail subsided into sniffles, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. But the silence wouldn't last. The phone rang once more, the fourth time in as many minutes. This time, the sound that assaulted my ears was a scream. A blood-curdling shriek, filled with terror and pain, a scream that felt ripped from the very depths of hell. I slammed the phone down on the receiver, the plastic cracking under the force. My breaths came in ragged gasps as adrenaline surged through my system. The house seemed to hold its breath, the storm outside a mere murmur compared to the terror raging inside me. The phone sat on the table, inert, a black eye staring back at me. But even in its silence, I could feel a presence, something malevolent lingering on the other end. The rest of the night was an ordeal. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan from the old house, amplified by the storm, sounded like the harbinger of something terrible. Morning arrived, a pale wash of light that chased away the shadows and the nightmares. I never used that phone again. But the memory of those calls, the sounds that echoed through the receiver, stayed with me. A chilling reminder that sometimes, the silence holds the most terrifying voices. This story will make you question your own voice. Picture this: solo night in, takeout containers scattered like fallen soldiers, and a karaoke marathon fueled by questionable song choices and an abundance of self-confidence, or maybe just bad judgment. Now, I'm no Beyoncé, but I belt out a tune with gusto. So there I was, belting out a classic power ballad, feeling like a rock star in my living room kingdom, when something off happened. Mid-song, I caught a weird echo on the tail end of a high note. It was a little off-key, scratchy even. Initially, I brushed it off. Old apartment, weird acoustics, nothing to get the heart racing. But then, something even spookier happened. I launched into the next chorus, voice soaring, or so I thought, when a perfect copy of my voice mimicked me, note for note, right after my own. Except, it came from the hallway, not my living room. My blood ran cold faster than a witch's cauldron. I stopped singing, the silence deafening after the unexpected duet. A nervous laugh bubbled up from my throat, the kind that sounds more like a strangled cat. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. Nothing, just the faint hum of the fridge and the unsettling silence in my ears. Was it just my imagination, fueled by too much karaoke and not enough reality? But my pounding heart and the prickling sensation on my skin told a different story. Tentatively, I started singing again, a slow, simple melody this time. The voice mimicked again, perfectly in sync, but coming from the kitchen now. Fear gnawed at me. Was there someone in the house? A prankster messing with me? Panic started clawing its way up my throat. Grabbing a baseball bat for defense, not my brightest idea, but hey, fear makes you do crazy things. I slowly inched towards the kitchen, each creak of the floorboards like a hammer blow to my already frayed nerves. Reaching the kitchen doorway, I held my breath and peeked inside. Empty. The fluorescent light cast a sterile glow on the stainless steel appliances, mocking my fear. Relief washed over me, fleeting but real. Maybe it was the echo, a weird effect of the empty apartment. Or maybe, just maybe, there was something else at play, something that could mimic my voice, something with an unsettling agenda. Just to be safe, I finished my concert in a hushed whisper, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. The rest of the night was spent huddled under a blanket, every creak and groan sending shivers down my spine. The next morning, I called a maintenance guy, claiming a faulty echo in the apartment. He poked around for a while, mumbled something about interesting acoustics, then left. Did he buy my story? Did I even buy it myself? The truth is, I don't know. But one thing's for sure, the next time I feel like serenading the walls, I'll stick to humming. Because let's face it, who needs a perfectly mimicking ghost backing vocalist anyway? Definitely not me. And hopefully, not you either. Let's talk about the night my house decided to play hide-and-seek with the lights, and maybe threw in a creepy stalker for good measure. It was your typical Tuesday night, Netflix, takeout, the whole solo act routine. Then, the lights flickered once, twice, then plunged the house into darkness. Now, minor power outages happen. But this one felt different. An oppressive silence descended, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Panic, a cold, slithering snake, coiled itself around my heart. Okay, deep breaths, Maya. Phone time. Fumbling in the dark, I finally grasped the familiar smooth surface. The screen, however, remained stubbornly black. Dead battery, of course. Fantastic timing. Scrambling around, I knocked over a lamp, the clatter echoing through the silent house. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in the doorway, a dark shape silhouetted against the faint moonlight filtering through the window. My breath hitched. Was it just a trick of the shadows, my imagination playing games in the darkness? Fear, primal and raw, flooded my veins. I couldn't stay frozen there. Grasping blindly, I found a book, a heavy hardback that could double as a weapon in a pinch. Gripping it tightly, I crept towards the doorway, heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Hello. I called out, my voice trembling in the silence. No answer. Just the same oppressive silence, punctuated by the occasional creak of the floorboards under my hesitant steps. The hallway stretched before me, a dark, menacing tunnel. Every rustle of leaves outside, every groan of the old house, sounded amplified, a potential threat lurking in the shadows. As I inched closer to the living room, another flicker of movement caught my eye. This time, it was definite. A dark figure darted past the doorway leading to the kitchen, disappearing into the gloom. Terror choked a scream in my throat. I wasn't alone. There was someone, or something, in my house. Panic threatened to consume me, but a surge of primal defiance pushed it back. I wouldn't be a helpless victim. Taking a deep breath, I lunged towards the kitchen, the book raised like a club. The room was dark, the only light filtering in from the open back door. A cold draft played on my skin, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something metallic. Just then, a flash of lightning illuminated the room for a split second. In that brief burst of light, I saw it. Not a person, but a large, overturned trash can lying on its side, its metal lid gleaming in the sudden light. Relief washed over me, so intense it almost made me weak at the knees. A stupid raccoon, that's all it was. The power must have knocked the can over, and the flickering lights and my overactive imagination had turned it into a lurking monster. Sheepishly, I righted the can, the familiar clatter a welcome sound in the sudden quiet. The power flickered back on just then, bathing the room in a harsh fluorescent glow. The house, once menacing, now looked reassuringly ordinary. Maybe it was just a case of a clumsy raccoon and a case of the jitters. But let me tell you, folks, when you're plunged into darkness, your mind can conjure up some pretty terrifying scenarios. So next time the lights go out, take a deep breath, grab a flashlight, not a heavy book, and remember, sometimes the monsters under the bed are just hungry scavengers with poor night vision. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet.